Are you serious right now? Did the ancient Magus' bride just give me a cliffhanger like that? Really? It's so hard to resist reading the manga right now. Like, I legit just want to go out of my way. After this video, after I'm done recording videos, after I'm done uploading videos, I straight up want to go and read the manga to this series. Because I love this series. I'm getting into it, I'm loving it, and then they give me a cliffhanger like that kind of fuels the desire of me wanting to read ahead. And I like that the series is getting me into it, but it upsets me because when I'm really into a series, cliffhangers just really hit me the wrong way. Because I'm like, oh, I want more. So, yeah. Now, I mean, I know for a fact that the anime has been doing very well. Like, in terms of just adaptation and the quality of it, it's just been very consistent overall since the very beginning. And so, I know if I read the manga, it probably will be very good, but the anime probably is better than the manga. I don't really know. I'm going off what I'm assuming, what I've been hearing. But still, just that cliffhanger truly bugs me. I'm like, why? Why of all things? Like, why would I get a cliffhanger like that? It's such a good moment where we're getting some details on Chise, getting some, secrets revealed of, Elias and all that, the foreign mage, So I'm just excited, and then that cliffhanger happens. But anyways, though, let me, carry on. So I want to point out something. Has anyone else noticed that Chise, there's, kind of a reoccurring thing going on with her? She continuously falls in a body of water and needs saving from it because she's about to drown. It's a recurring thing. Look, let's think about the dragons. In the last episode and all that, when she fell into the body of water, eventually she got saved, and then in this episode, the exact same thing happened. Very similar event. You even see where Elias, he actually dries her clothes once again. It wasn't said, but you could see the little magic effect and all that when he used fire to kind of warm up her clothes and dry them completely. So, there was a very similar event to the previous episode, and there is a reoccurring thing going on with Chise's character, which is funny, but at the same time could be very concerning in a way, from a perspective of how many might feel about this. Now, let me explain. There's a lot of series kind of similar to the Ancient Magus' Bride. One series that kind of really pops up into my head with, a main female lead that can be very strong-willed or has a lot of, backstory or whatever that, can make you really interested in what, she is or how she can develop. I guess, Snow White with the red hair or, Akatsuki no Yuna. One of these two series, basically, they both have redhead characters and they have main female leads. But in this case, Chise is kind of starting to remind me a lot of those characters to where she's like a princess that's like a damsel in distress. And don't get me wrong, every so often something like that situation where, the main female character needs to be saved, it doesn't bug me too much. But if it becomes a reoccurring thing, it does start to bug me. And I do hope that this series doesn't eventually devolve into something like that, of Chise needing saved every single week, because I noticed that she's starting to be kidnapped a lot, and then she's, falling into water needing to be saved, so forth, so on. I mean, the only thing that kind of makes this acceptable at this point is that Chise doesn't really care much about herself. I mean, from what we know, Chise kind of views herself as, less of a person than anyone else. She kind of views herself as an object, and she never really showed any love, and even at the end of the last episode and all that, with all that meaning, basically she came to the conclusion that, she still wants to technically die. She wants to, be gone from this world, because she doesn't really care much. She hasn't found a real good reason to live yet. And that's kind of one of the big things that keeps me interested in the series. And with this constant reoccurring thing of her being saved, it fits with her character. But I hope it's not a recurring thing, because it bugs me. From a writing perspective, it's very lazy, in my opinion, because it's something that's used constantly with, female characters that are the main character. I personally not the biggest fan of that, concept of writing anymore. Now, that's my personal opinion, to be honest. Anyways, let's get into some world building and development we got in this episode. Number one, let's talk about what happened with the Sorcerer. So I'm going on a limb here and assuming that the reason why the husband, the one in the flashback that, killed all the cats, that eventually led it to where this, lake and all that needs to be cleansed, I'm going to assume that the husband was tricked by sorcerers, because we get a little bit of details here and there throughout the episode that it's obvious that sorcerers are not that good at people. Now, Obviously, there might be some good sorcerers out there. I mean, that's something we could assume. But from what I'm understanding, especially from this episode, is that they're trying to peg sorcerers, or the writer's trying to peg sorcerers as like the main villain of the series, or the main enemy, the antagonist of the story, and might explain why Ellis wanted, our main female character, Chise, to be, a mage so much, because, they're a dying race, and sorcerers are taking over, and they're not really good for the environment, or, caring for individuals at all. From what you could assume from this episode, with the little details, the two people that popped up are interfering with, Chise and Ellis. They're sorcerers, and clearly they don't have the best interest in mind for individuals, or at least the actual local wildlife, or the cats, or anything like that, especially with how they're trying to stop Chise. So it's obvious that the sorcerers are not necessarily the good guys whatsoever, and this lets us know that there is a main enemy, and it's not just going to be a series about Chise learning, but there is, like, another side to this story, and it makes some very interesting world building, because, I mean, with the whole introduction of sorcery, and then you have the stuff with, like, mages and stuff, like the complete differences between magic and sorcery, it shows that there's definitely something different there, and probably their own viewpoints on how it's used, and I like the little, details that's been building up since that was introduced a couple episodes back. But even then, though, let's talk about the big detail about this episode when it came to the backstory with the dude. So, we can assume from all the little details that the husband, he was tricked into probably committing murder on cats, killing a lot of those cats. And let me explain why I have this assumption. You see how this man, in a brief flashback, he was just killing many cats. Uncontrollably, just killing them. And we do know that he was meeting a sorcerer, or sorceress and all that. And his wife was very sick. He was already aware that his wife was very sick. And if I had to assume anything back in those old times and how people used to really believe in magic and sorcery and stuff, I'm going to assume that he probably was told by a sorcerer if he was to probably kill a bunch of cats, most likely it would heal his wife and fix him, or fix her, basically. And so that's probably why he committed those, heinous acts, was because most likely the sorcerers set him up to do something like that, which in turn led it to where the wife eventually was trapped by her own husband even after death. We see how she's kind of locked up, where we can assume that's her soul locked up by her own husband, because of whatever the sorcerers did to him and tricked him into doing. So it feels like, overall, who the main enemy here is, like, it's not the husband, it's actually the sorcerers that probably caused all of this. But anyways, let's go on to the next part, though. Let's talk about the stuff with Ellis and his characterization. That makes him very fascinating. Number one, he has a shadowy essence. Now, in terms of magic, sorcery, stuff like this, shadow, like, essence and all that, like, different traits or types of magic, that's a common thing. That's a common theme in, shows or any term of literature when it handles magic or sorcery. And so, Ellis being shadow, it kind of lets us know that we got a little bit more details on the world building, that there is different types of mages. For instance, mages that specialize maybe in fire magic or firecraft or whatever, and then you have, like, other mages that specialize in maybe, cleansing of certain polluted areas. I mean, they have their own specialties, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, you have professions, jobs, and stuff, and you could assume a long time ago that there's probably a lot of mages that had their own individual, like, tree that they went into to help out the environment. And since, it's a very dying race, like, it's a dying race, barely any left, there's not many that can really cleanse, certain areas anymore. Basically, Chise is like one of the only few that probably can help out the environment and purify certain areas. And so in this case, Ellis can't really help out since he has a shadowy essence. And, I mean, you gotta look at it like this, okay? You have something that's dark and polluted and all that, and shadowy. It's very similar to what, Ellis is. He also is very shadowy. We've seen cases of magic he's used is, like, shadow magic. He uses, like, he hides in the shadow of Chise. We've seen that he uses a little bit of fire. Just overall, he has this very dark vibe to his magic. He doesn't have anything that's too bright overall. And he says that he doesn't really specialize in cleansing or purifying of that type of sort because he's just not good in it whatsoever. And that's why Chise is needed, because most likely her affinity to certain parts of magic is better at cleansing than probably handling whatever Ellis normally handles. So I just wanted to point that out. I like the world building letting us know that there is some things that Ellis cannot do, while Chise will probably be even better than him in that regard. Okay, so next thing to talk about, let's talk about the fact of what Ellis is in general and what he said about children. So he states in this episode, when he goes off and hides and turns into a shadow, he doesn't like children. He does not like kids whatsoever. And the reason why is because he doesn't like how they have no magic, but they're still able to perceive him and see him or see other creatures that you shouldn't normally see. And it goes along with a lot of folk tales and, superstition that I've seen over the years, especially when I was a kid. Basically, many say, and even in, famous stories, ghost stories and stuff like that, that children are able to see ghosts. They're able to see ghosts, even though they don't necessarily see them, they're able to sense them in some way, similar to how animals are. And this is something that's like a superstition that's been around for a very long time. And so in this case, seeing how Elias was like weary of children, like he didn't like them because they were able to sense him even though they shouldn't be able to see him, I thought that was really interesting. And it shows what type of character he is, how he doesn't like to interact with others, and how he's, someone that's very lonely and just doesn't want to make contact barely at all with any other person. I mean, we already know with the introduction of his character that he was someone that was like a hermit. He used to stay hidden for a very long time in his cottage. It didn't really leave a lot, so it's obvious that he doesn't like to socialize, and this shows a part of that he doesn't like to be around, humans in general. And so it makes you really question and wonder, why Chise? I mean, yes, she's a different type of human. She's able to see things that she shouldn't see and help out certain ways that, probably he can't. But it's explained that she definitely has a time limit. Most likely, she is going to die in a couple of years. She probably doesn't have a very long lifespan. Now, you can assume from the details we got from the sorcerers in this episode that basically Chise is being used by Elias. Now, that could be correct and probably incorrect. Maybe it's half right, okay? And what I'm getting at is we know that the sorcerers, they're good at lying and they love manipulating people, and from what we've seen from this episode is that they're not necessarily a trustworthy sort. So it's obvious that maybe they're just trying to pit Chise against Elias. Even then, though, it seems like Elias knows things and probably not saying anything to Chise, either out for concern of her, which I kind of doubt in a way, because he obviously doesn't understand humans. I mean, that's very obvious. I mean, you don't even need to watch the OVAs to understand that he clearly doesn't know how to properly interact with Chise, or how to, get these little signs, key little signs, how to properly talk to someone. So it's kind of there, and has been there for a while, that he probably cares about Chise, but he doesn't properly understand that he needs to probably talk about this or people make misunderstandings. In this case, I really wonder when he stated, like, his honeymoon with her. It makes me wonder, does he even know what honeymoon even means? I mean, since he doesn't have a really good understanding of, humans, and it's obvious by the way he's acted, I wonder if when he says honeymoon or marriage, does he really know the context of those words? I mean, I know he's a very intelligent individual and all that. I mean, we know he's been around for a while, but it makes me wonder if he understands the true meaning of that when it comes to, human tradition. But anyways, I'm going to end it there. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe, and if you like my video, please leave a like. I love you guys. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.